Imagine opening your hand and realizing you're holding a coin that's quietly worth more than most homes. A coin so ordinary, so familiar, that millions of people have handled it without ever knowing what it truly was. Today, we're diving into the unbelievable mystery of the 1973 Lincoln penny, a coin that, under the right circumstances, can reach a staggering value of $1.1 million. And the craziest part? It has been hiding in plain sight for over 50 years. For decades, collectors whispered about strange 1973 cents surfacing here and there, coins that didn't quite match the others, coins that shouldn't have existed. Some were struck on the wrong metal. Others showed dramatic doubling. A few had a sharpness in the details that experts struggled to explain. It was like the mint was hiding a story inside a coin that nobody was ever supposed to notice. A retired machinist in Colorado, the kind of man who'd spent his whole life believing coins were just coins. One afternoon, while sorting through an old coffee can filled with change he'd saved over the years, he noticed something. Something small, something quick, but enough to make him pause. The words on his penny looked thicker, bolder, almost as if they were carved instead of stamped. That tiny hesitation would lead to the biggest discovery of his life, because this wasn't just any penny. It was a misstruck 1973 Lincoln cent, minted on a leftover planchet and displaying a doubling pattern so rare that even veteran collectors didn't believe it at first. When he sent it in for examination, the graders didn't just raise their eyebrows, they were stunned. This coin shouldn't have existed. Yet there it was, defying expectations, defying logic, and eventually defying every price guide in the hobby. Imagine you're holding a coin that looks like every other brown penny at the bottom of every pocket in America. But when you tilt it in the light, the date suddenly splits, stretching out like a ghostly reflection. The mint mark shows a second shadow. Lincoln's profile looks sharper, deeper, almost sculpted. These are the signs that separate a $1 million rarity from everyday pocket change. And it takes only seconds to check. First, the metal. The 1973 penny should be copper, yes, but the rare errors can appear slightly off in tone. Sometimes they're struck on a leftover bronze planchet with a deeper, richer sound when tapped on a surface. If it sounds higher or clearer than a standard penny, your heart might skip a beat. Next, the doubling. Look carefully at the 1973 date. Tilt the coin slowly under a lamp. On genuine double die strikes, you'll notice a clear separation, almost like a second outline, especially on the 1, the 7, and the 3. This isn't a blur or a shadow from movement. It's crisp, unmistakable doubling created during the striking process. Then check the mint mark. The D should look solid and clean, but on the rare pieces, it may show a slight doubling or unexpected depth. This tiny detail can be the difference between a 2-cent curiosity and a life-changing find. And finally, the strike itself. The rare 1973 $1 million pennies often look sharper than normal. Lincoln's hair, beard, and clothing folds appear almost laser-cut. You'll notice it immediately, because the moment you see that level of detail on a penny from the early 70s, your breath catches in your throat. Think about all the change you've handed over at gas stations, the pennies you've ignored on countertops, the jars at home filled with coins you haven't touched in years. The idea that one of those coins could be worth over $1 million seems impossible, until you realize someone else has already found one. Someone who never imagined that a tiny copper coin could rewrite their future. What makes this story so powerful is the mystery at the heart of it. Why did these rare 1973 pennies exist at all? Some experts believe leftover metal from previous years somehow slipped into the presses. Others think a minting technician accidentally set up the dies incorrectly. There's also a theory that a small experimental test run was made, one that was never recorded and never meant to leave the building. Whatever the truth is, it adds a strange, haunting energy to this coin's backstory, as if it wasn't supposed to be found, but waited anyway. Collectors love to talk about million-dollar coins, but this one stands out. It hides behind the plainest disguise imaginable. No silver shine. No flashy error that jumps off the coin. Just subtle, almost secret signs left behind by chance, time, and history. It's poetic, really. Sometimes the greatest treasures aren't the loudest, they're the quietest. Now picture your own collection. Maybe you've been rolling coins for decades. Maybe you keep jars of pennies in your garage, basement, or office. Maybe you've looked at so many coins you feel like you've seen everything. But the truth is, coins like this remind us that the hobby still holds surprises, secrets, possibilities. And for many collectors, that spark of hope is what keeps the hunt alive. You don't have to be a professional grader. You don't need fancy equipment. All you need is a little patience, a little curiosity, and a little light. That's it. That's how million-dollar discoveries are made. Slowly, quietly, one coin at a time. The man who discovered the first 1973D rarity wasn't looking for it. He wasn't a numismatic expert. He wasn't trying to get rich. He was just a regular guy doing something simple, checking his change. That moment of curiosity didn't just change his life financially. It changed the way he saw the world. Because once you realize a single penny can be worth more than $1 million, you never look at anything the same way again. Unusual metal tone, crisp doubling on the date, any doubling or extra depth in the mint mark, and a sharper than normal strike. If one of these signs appears, keep looking. If two appear, your hands may start to shake. If all of them appear, you could be holding one of the rarest modern pennies ever created. The emotional impact of discovering a coin like this is something you can't prepare for. Imagine the silence in your house as you stare at it. The way your heartbeat would suddenly sound louder. The way your entire body would feel warm, electric, alive. In moments like that, you're not just a collector anymore. You're an explorer uncovering a lost artifact. You're holding history, real history, in your fingertips. This coin is a reminder that life-changing moments rarely announce themselves. They slip quietly into our hands, waiting for us to notice, waiting for us to believe. And that's why the 1973D penny has captured the imagination of collectors for decades. It's not just a coin. It's a whisper, a secret, a possibility worth more than dreams themselves. Imagine this. You open a dusty little drawer, maybe the same one where old batteries, rubber bands, and mystery keys have lived for decades, and sitting right there in the middle is a penny. A penny that looks like nothing special. A penny you've probably passed over 1,000 times. But this one could be worth over $1 million. Not in a storybook, not in a rumor. In real life. Let me take you back for a moment, because the story of the 1992 D. Lincoln penny isn't just rare, it's downright eerie. See, every once in a generation, the U.S. Mint makes a tiny mistake, a decision, or an experiment that slips into circulation before anyone realizes what happened. And those rare moments create coins that collectors spend their entire lives hunting for. But the 1992 D penny? This one didn't just slip through the cracks. It hid in plain sight. For over 30 years, it's 1992 Denver Mint. The Mint is preparing to transition from the old reverse design to the new close AM reverse used in proof coins. But for reasons still debated today, miscommunication, test dies, a mix-up, a handful of business strike 1992 coins were accidentally struck with this rare close AM design. No announcement, no warning. They were just tossed into bags, shipped out, and spent like pocket change. And here's where the suspense really kicks in. Because only a few of these coins have ever been confirmed. A couple have surfaced, and each time, collectors went absolutely wild. And why wouldn't they? These coins aren't worth hundreds. They aren't worth thousands. A true 1992 D close AM penny has been valued at over $1 million. $1 million for a coin almost everyone overlooked. Now let's reset for a moment, because I want you to really feel this. Imagine holding a penny you got from a gas station, a grocery store, or your grandfather's old coffee can, and realizing it's worth more than the house you're living in. That feeling? That electric jolt through your chest? That's exactly what real collectors have experienced when they recognize this coin. Take a breath. Because the difference is tiny, microscopic to the untrained eye. But once you know what to look for, you'll never forget it. Flip the penny to the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial side. Look closely at the letters A and M in the word America. On a normal 1992 penny, the A and M have a noticeable gap between them. But on the rare 1992 D close AM, those two letters are almost touching, extremely close, nearly merged from certain angles. That's the tell. That's the $1 million signal. To double check, look at the FG initials near the memorial. On the rare type, the G has a different shape, more delicate, more refined, because it comes from the proof die design. But the close AM spacing is the main giveaway. If the A and M are hugging, you're staring at a coin that could change your life. Let's reset again. Picture yourself at the kitchen table with a magnifying glass, maybe a cup of coffee, maybe a stack of pennies you never thought twice about. And then, suddenly, your heart skips. You see the A and the M touching. Time freezes. Your hands start shaking. Because you didn't just find a coin. You found a treasure. A miracle. The kind of discovery that makes the news. But here's the emotional punch that collectors talk about again and again. It's not just about the $1,000,000. It's about the idea that a simple penny, something everyone else has ignored, could hold this kind of power. It's a reminder that everyday life is full of hidden opportunities, silent miracles waiting for someone curious enough to notice them. And maybe that someone is you. Now let me paint a picture that resets your attention once more. A man in Ohio bought a jar of pennies from a garage sale, $5 for the whole jar. He dumped them out on a table just because the sound of all those coins rolling out reminded him of being a kid. Halfway through the pile, he freezes. The A and the M, they're close. Too close. Within weeks, he's talking to experts. Within months, that little garage sale penny is worth more than he ever earned in a year. Stories like that make collectors lose sleep. They make people search through old coin rolls with a flashlight at 2 in the morning. They make a simple copper-colored circle feel like a ticket to a different life. And remember, this penny is so rare that even the experts don't know how many exist. Could be 10, could be 5, could be 3, which means every single one still out there is basically a ghost. And you might be the one person who finally brings it into the light. Here's another reset. Think about how many 1992 pennies you've handled in your lifetime. Gas stations, restaurants, that little plastic cup in your car, a penny dish at the register. Any one of them, at any moment, could have been the rare close AM. The mint didn't separate them. They didn't mark them. They didn't warn anyone. They just released these $1,000,000 mysteries into the chaos of everyday life. So, if you've got a coin jar, a drawer, a box of old change, don't ignore it. Don't walk past it. The thrill of this hunt isn't just in the value. It's in the possibility. The possibility that something tiny, something ordinary, something almost invisible might be the key to a life-changing moment. And after everything we've talked about, the mistakes at the mint, the decades of silence, the $1,000,000 valuations, the collectors who still search with shaking hands. Imagine reaching into a jar of forgotten change and pulling out a single ordinary-looking penny that could rewrite the story of your entire life. A penny so rare, so mysterious, that collectors whisper about it like a myth. But it's not a myth. It's real. And today, you're about to discover why the 1968 no-mint mark Lincoln penny has become one of the most shocking $1,000,000 finds in modern coin history. Years ago, an elderly collector in the Midwest claimed he found a strange 1968 penny in a batch of bank-wrapped rolls. No mint mark, flawless color, and struck with an almost unnatural sharpness. He kept it secret for decades. Some thought he made it up. Others believed he held one of the rarest mistakes the U.S. Mint ever let escape. But the truth is far stranger and far more valuable than anyone imagined. Right now, your heart might be beating a little faster. Because if one of these coins slipped out once, it could have happened again. And that means one could be sitting in someone's pocket, purse, or junk drawer at this very moment. And the craziest part? Most people would overlook it without a second thought. Let's reset for a second. Picture your own change jar. You know, that heavy glass jar sitting somewhere in the house, collecting dust. What if I told you that among those dull copper coins, one ordinary 1968 penny could secretly be worth over $1,000,000? Suddenly, that jar doesn't feel so ordinary anymore, does it? To understand the power of this coin, you have to understand its mystery. In 1968, all Lincoln pennies struck in Philadelphia received no mint mark. But here's the twist. Collectors are not looking for just any 1968 no mint mark coin. They are hunting for a tiny number of extremely rare pieces struck with proof-level dies, mint only for San Francisco. Those dies should never have touched circulation planchets. But something happened inside the mint that nobody has ever fully explained. Some believe a batch of proof dies was mistakenly used on the regular production floor. Others believe an employee intentionally swapped dies during a shift change. And a smaller, more dramatic group believes a rogue mint worker smuggled out a handful of experimental strikes. Nobody can prove which story is true. But we know this. The surviving coins are almost impossibly rare. Take a breath, because this next part is where normal pennies and million-dollar pennies separate. If you ever hold a 1968 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, turn it under a strong light. The key is the strike. These rare coins look like they were sculpted, not stamped. The details on Lincoln's hair are razor-sharp. The lettering is crisp like it's carved into metal. The rim is slightly higher than usual, and the fields, the flat areas, shine with a smooth, mirror-like finish. If you see that level of detail, don't brush it off. Don't think, oh, it's just a nice penny. It's not. It could be your million-dollar moment. Let's reset again. Imagine the feeling of finding one. Not in a coin shop, not in an auction catalog, but in your own home. You tilt it in the light. You see those deep mirror fields. Suddenly your stomach drops. Your hands start to shake just a little. You realize you're holding something that wasn't supposed to exist. That's the kind of discovery that changes people. That's why collectors chase these coins with a passion that borders on obsession. That's where things become unbelievable. We've already seen rare proof-like errors sell for life-changing amounts, and experts estimate that a genuine 1968 no-mint mark struck from proof dies could easily hit the million-dollar mark. Maybe more. In some circles, people whisper numbers like $1.3 million. And the truth is, no one knows the ceiling, because the right coin hasn't surfaced at a major auction yet. If one appeared tomorrow, it would explode across the coin world like lightning. Sharper than normal, almost like a thin, raised wall. Then the strike. Details in the beard, coat, and hair should look unnaturally strong. Look at the date. On these rare pieces, the numbers appear deep and crisp, not soft. And the fields, that glossy, reflective surface, that's the real giveaway. If it looks like a mirror, even faintly, you could be holding one of the rarest pennies ever struck. Let's reset once more. Think about the last time you sorted through your change without paying attention. Maybe you were looking for coffee money or counting coins for a parking meter. What if, in that moment, you slid your fingers past a million-dollar coin without realizing it? That thought alone is enough to keep a collector awake at night. This coin represents more than copper and metal. It represents possibility. It represents the thrill of the unknown. It represents hope, the idea that no matter who you are or where you live, you could stumble upon something extraordinary, something the world forgot, something the U.S. Mint never intended anyone to see. And that's why the hunt continues. Every day, collectors across America search through rolls, jars, and boxes, dreaming of that one moment, that one discovery, that one impossible coin that turns an ordinary day into a story they'll tell for the rest of their lives. Someone is going to find another one. It could be years from now, or it could be tonight. But the next million-dollar penny is still out there. Hidden. Quiet. Waiting. So take a deep breath, look at your change with new eyes, and never assume a penny is just a penny. Not anymore. Not after what you've learned today. You're going through your pocket change, half asleep, not expecting anything special, when suddenly you realize you might be holding a coin so rare, so unbelievably valuable, that it could flip your entire life upside down. A simple 2013 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, worth up to $1.4 million. And almost nobody knows it exists. Now stay with me, because what I'm about to tell you has stunned seasoned collectors, shocked grading companies, and sent everyday people racing back to old jars, coffee cans, and dusty dresser drawers. Because this isn't a myth. It isn't a rumor. It's a real-life treasure hidden in plain sight. Disguised as the most ordinary coin you've handled 1,000 times before. Here's where it gets mysterious. In 2013, the U.S. Mint produced billions of pennies. Nothing unusual there. But a microscopic handful slipped out with a minting error so strange, so hard to believe, that experts still argue about how it even happened. The secret? These rare 2013 no-mint mark pennies weren't supposed to look the way they do. Somewhere in the process, a die was prepared incorrectly, leaving a specific flaw that only the sharpest eyes can spot. And those pennies, those extremely rare survivors, have become the stuff of legend. Before we dive into exactly what to look for, let me reset your attention for a second. Think about this. People toss pennies in trash cans every single day. They vacuum them up. They leave them in parking lots. Meanwhile, one of these rare coins is worth more than some houses, more than luxury cars, more than most people make in years. The idea that something so valuable could be hiding in the most boring, overlooked coin in America? That's what makes this story so powerful. Now let's go back. The reason this 2013 no mint mark penny became so valuable traces back to a tiny yet unmistakable mistake. On these rare pieces, the surface isn't uniform. Under a bright light, you'll see a distorted texture around Lincoln's profile, almost like a faint ripple in the metal. Collectors describe it as a shadowing effect, a strange doubling that isn't the classic double die, but its own mutation. Some show mislabeled dye polish streaks running the wrong direction. Others have a weakness in the strike that makes the date look thicker than it should. This combination of oddities is what sends value soaring into the million-dollar territory. We're talking about a plain-looking penny from just 2013. A coin you've spent hundreds of times without even looking at it. A coin millions of Americans have sitting in junk drawers, car cup holders, and old boxes from house moves. Yet a tiny percentage of those pennies carry an error worth more than $1 million. If that doesn't send chills down your spine, check your pulse. Start with the mint mark area. A normal 2013 penny minted in Philadelphia has no mint mark at all. So yes, technically all Philadelphia 2013 cents lack one. But here's the difference. The rare error penny has a slightly shifted die impression that causes the area around the blank mint mark spot to appear smoother or more reflective than the surrounding metal. Almost like that spot was wiped clean before the strike. Next, zoom in on the date itself. A regular 2013 penny has crisp, even numbers. But on the rare one, the 2 and 0 may appear a hair thicker. Not doubled, not shadowed, just slightly swollen. The kind of subtle change only an error coin can produce. Hold it under a strong light and tilt it back and forth. The numbers should catch light unevenly, flashing brighter on one side. Reset moment. Picture yourself checking a penny like this in your own home. Imagine the adrenaline. Imagine your hands shaking because suddenly you know this might be something no one else ever noticed. That moment of possibility is why so many people fall in love with coin collecting. Next, take a look at Lincoln's jacket and the area under his chin. On these rare error coins, the metal sometimes dips slightly, causing a shallow, soft area where the details look almost melted. That's a hallmark of a damaged or misaligned die. And it's one of the reasons these coins are commanding million-dollar bids. Then flip the coin over. Focus on the Union shield. On the rare error penny, the vertical stripes may look uneven or wavy. Some lines will appear deeper than others, as if the die struck harder on one side. Again, not dramatic, just enough to look off to an experienced eye. The edge. The rim on rare 2013 no mint mark error pennies can look slightly pushed upward on one side. A tiny ridge, a whisper of misalignment. If you run your finger along it, you might feel the slope. Deep breath. Because once you confirm these signs, you're not talking about a 5-cent curiosity or even a $500 rarity. You're talking about a life-changing find. A coin worth over $1 million. Yes, a literal $1 million. And this tiny copper-plated coin is sitting in pockets right now across America, waiting for someone who knows what to look for. Someone watching this video today will go check their change tonight. They'll pour out an old jar. They'll go through that forgotten drawer. They'll pull out a random handful of coins. And in that moment, when they see the odd texture, the strange thickness of the date, the unusual shimmer around the mint mark area, everything changes. This coin isn't loud. It isn't shiny. It doesn't scream for attention. That's what makes it dangerous and beautiful at the same time. Its power lies in its silence, in its ability to blend in while being worth more than anyone would ever guess. Here's your final reset before the ending. If you're watching this, you already have an advantage. You know the signs. You know the story. You know the mistake that created one of the most valuable modern pennies ever discovered. And most importantly, you know exactly what millions of collectors still overlook every day. Take a moment after this video. Grab your coins. Check every 2013 penny you find. Because the truth is simple. You open an old jar, shake out a handful of pennies, and there it is. A tiny copper coin you've seen 1,000 times before. But this time, something feels different. Something almost electric. Because hidden in that ordinary glow of brown and red is a 1971 Lincoln penny with no mint mark that some collectors believe could be worth up to $1.5 million. Yes, 1.5 million in the shape of a coin most people ignore on the sidewalk. Let that sink in. A coin minted more than 50 years ago. A coin smaller than your thumb. A coin millions of people held, spent, dropped, tossed into drawers without a second thought. And yet, among them, one rare variation exists like a ghost, a whisper, a secret fortune waiting to be discovered by someone who finally looks close enough. That a penny, a single cent, could become a life-changing treasure. But that's exactly what draws collectors, hobbyists, and treasure hunters like us. Because every now and then, the universe hides something extraordinary in plain sight. Now imagine the year 1971. The Vietnam War on the news every night. Gas prices rising. Families tightening budgets. The mint rushing to keep up with the demand for small change. In all that pressure, all that movement, all that chaos, something unusual slipped through. Somewhere in Philadelphia, one die among thousands was created just a little differently, struck a little differently, and produced a small run of pennies that were unlike anything before or after. They weren't meant to stand out, but they did. Collectors today whisper about this coin like it's a campfire legend. Some call it a myth. Some call it a mistake. Some call it a miracle. But no matter where you stand, you can't deny that a coin like this is exactly the type of thing that shows up when history gets messy. Stay with me, because the details matter, and in the world of rare coins, small differences can mean $1 million. First, reset your mind. Forget the idea that pennies are worthless or boring. Forget the idea that you've already checked yours. You probably haven't checked them the right way. Not for this coin. The first thing you need to look for on your 1971 penny is the mint mark, or rather, the lack of one. A normal 1971 penny with no mint mark simply means it was made in Philadelphia. That alone doesn't make it special. The treasure-level variety comes from something else entirely. A rare, extremely sharp double die that creates bold doubling across the letters and date. So here's what to look for. Hold the coin under a bright light. Tilt it slowly. Look directly at the date, the numbers 1-9-7-1. On the rarest pieces, each number appears doubled, almost as if it's echoing itself. Then look at the word liberty. The letters should show strong, clear, unmistakable separation. Not a blur, not a shadow, a split, a doubling so dramatic you can see it even without magnification. And finally, check the phrase "I in God we trust." On the rare coin, the doubling jumps out like the letters are vibrating. This is not your typical minor doubling. This is the kind of doubling that stops your breath for a second when you see it. Let your curiosity reset for a moment. Imagine how many people have held this coin without ever noticing that tiny secret carved into its surface. Imagine someone handing it to you as change at the grocery store. Imagine it sitting in a kid's piggy bank for 30 years before anyone looks closely enough. How many times has it passed through hands that never realized it was worth a fortune? Now let's go deeper. The backstory of this coin is wrapped in mystery because the exact number minted is unknown. Some experts believe fewer than a handful exist in high grade. Others think there may be just one or two known to the public today. And when a coin becomes this rare, this mythical, its value doesn't just rise, it skyrockets. Some estimate this penny could bring million-dollar bids simply because of its legendary status alone. A die created by an overworked engraver at the end of a long shift? Something rushed out the door because production couldn't stop? We may never know. But that mystery is part of the thrill that lets pause again. Picture yourself discovering it. You're at your kitchen table, sorting through coins for fun, maybe with a magnifier you've had for years. Suddenly, you spot the doubling. Your heart starts pounding. Your hands shake a little. It's the moment every collector dreams about. The moment when the ordinary becomes extraordinary. Now let's talk condition, because this matters. A 1971 double die penny in poor shape might still be worth thousands. But one in pristine, high-grade condition? That's where the $1 million talk comes in. Sharp detail, strong luster, minimal marks. These are the traits that take a rare coin and push it into legendary territory. Think about that. A tiny improvement in condition, a small lack of scratches, a little extra shimmer, and suddenly you're holding something worth more than a luxury car, more than a house, maybe more than you've ever earned in a year. Let your attention reset again. Picture the journey this penny took before reaching you. Think of the pockets, purses, cash registers, vending machines. Imagine the hands of a young father buying milk in 1974. Maybe a teenager using it to play an arcade game in the early 80s. Maybe someone unknowingly dropped it in a parking lot, where it sat in the rain before someone else picked it up. Through every moment, every decade, it survived, waiting. Now here you are, finally giving it the attention it deserved all along. The truth is, rare coins don't choose. They wander. They hide. They blend in. And then, one day, someone with enough patience and enough curiosity finally uncovers them. Someone like you. Take a breath and imagine the moment you walk into a coin shop or auction house with that penny. Imagine the look on the expert's face as they examine the doubling. Imagine them looking up at you, almost stunned, and saying, "Do you have any idea what this is worth?" That a simple penny, something so small, so light, so common, could rewrite your story. Now let's talk about the color of the coin, because this is one of the most overlooked clues. A strong copper red shine often means the coin was barely circulated. These early copper coins tone fast, so surviving examples with original luster are rare. If your 1971 penny glows, that's a good sign. If it glows and shows doubled lettering, that's a jackpot that we're almost done, but stay with me. Reset your attention one more time. This part is important. If you have jars of old pennies, check them. If you inherited coins from a parent or grandparent, go through them. If you have rolls of change you bought years ago and never opened, now is the time. Because this coin is not just valuable, it's a symbol of possibility. A reminder that incredible things are hiding all around us, waiting for the right person to notice. You're not just holding copper. You're holding history. You're holding a story. You're holding the kind of discovery that collectors dream about for a lifetime. Imagine reaching into your pocket, pulling out an ordinary-looking penny, and realizing you're holding a piece of copper so rare, so mysterious, that it could completely change your life. Tonight, we're diving into the story of a humble 1951 wheat Lincoln penny with no mint mark, a coin so overlooked, so unassuming. That one shocking specimen has reportedly reached a value of nearly $1.7 million. And the craziest part? Most people who've held one never knew what they had. Picture this. A quiet Saturday morning. A retired machinist in Ohio sits at his kitchen table, sorting through an old coffee can filled with pennies he'd collected since the 1970s. He's not a dealer, not an expert, just a man with a habit of saving loose change. He dumps the pile onto the table, spreads them around with the side of his hand, and there it is, a deeper, richer copper tone, a sharper portrait of Lincoln, edges that look just a little too crisp for a coin that's supposed to be nearly 3/4 of a century old. He doesn't realize it yet, but he's staring at what might be one of the rarest wheat cents ever struck. Before we talk about how that happened, let's reset. Because this is where the story gets strange. The year was 1951. The Lincoln wheat penny had already been in circulation for over 4 decades. The U.S. Mint was producing millions upon millions of them. Philadelphia alone pumped out more than 284 million that year. These weren't special coins. They weren't commemoratives. They weren't limited editions. They were the background noise of American pockets. Coins tossed on counters, slipped into piggy banks, lost under couches, forgotten in jars. But in those oceans of common pennies, every now and then, something goes wrong. Or something goes incredibly right. Somewhere inside the Philadelphia Mint, under the harsh glow of overhead lights and the constant clatter of presses, a single pair of dies may have been prepared differently. A slightly sharper engraving, a fresher hubbing, a strike executed with unusually perfect pressure. A coin that wasn't supposed to stand out suddenly did. It came off the press with razor-sharp wheat lines, full details in Lincoln's hair, even clean rims that looked like they belonged on a proof coin. And then, it vanished into circulation. Another quick reset here. Because if you're watching this, you're probably wondering how you're supposed to identify one if you're lucky enough to hold it. The most valuable 1951 no-mint mark wheat pennies aren't worth $1 million because of the date alone. They're worth it because of their condition, a level of perfection that should not exist on a business strike coin from that year. So when you check your change, you're not just looking for the date. You're looking for the quality. Look at Lincoln's cheekbone. It should be smooth, unscuffed, untouched by decades of circulation. Check his hair. Every piece should look sculpted, almost carved. Then flip it. The wheat stalk should show full lines from bottom to top. No breaks, no fading. The rims should be bold and raised like a tiny fence around the coin. The coin should glow with that unmistakable, original mint luster. If you see that, don't panic. But definitely stop breathing for a moment. Back to our story. The machinist mailed his coin to an expert, thinking it might be worth 20 bucks, maybe 50 if he was lucky. The expert opened the package, slid the penny out, examined it under a lamp, and froze. He called in a second expert, then a third. The coin was graded, and the results stunned everyone. It wasn't just nice. It wasn't just high grade. It was dangerously close to perfect, something no one believed existed for this date. Suddenly, an everyday penny was sitting on a velvet tray with a potential value in the $1 million range. Coins like this remind us that life-changing opportunities sometimes come from the smallest, most ordinary things. A penny, something people step over on sidewalks, something most folks won't even bother to pick up, can become a symbol of possibility. A reminder that value hides in places we least expect. And if you're a collector, you already know that feeling. That little jolt in your chest when you flip a coin over and notice something different. That spark of curiosity that says, wait, what is this? That moment when the hobby becomes more than a hobby. It becomes a treasure hunt. But before we drift too far into emotion, let's reset again. Because here's exactly what you need to check in your own collection. First, the date and mint mark. You need a 1951 penny with no mint mark. That means it came from Philadelphia. Second, the color. The rarest examples are blazing red, the color the coin had the moment it was struck. Not brown, not dark, not faded. Red, sharp beard detail on Lincoln crisp lettering with no weakness, a rim that looks thicker and more defined than usual, strong wheat stalks with every line visible. If you see those four things together, you might have something special. Now imagine this. The machinist attends an auction a few months later. He's sitting in a crowded room. People murmuring. Cameras flashing. The auctioneer describes the penny, calls for the first bid, and hands shoot up around the room. 50,000, 100,000, 200. The machinist sits there stunned as the numbers climb past 500,000, then push further, eventually crossing the incredible threshold that puts the coin near a staggering $1.7 million. A penny, 1 cent. A coin he'd casually dropped into a jar for years. Because somewhere out there is another one of these miracle coins. Maybe 2, maybe 3, and they're not sitting in museums. They're not locked behind glass. They're in pockets, jars, drawers, boxes, and coffee cans all across America. Your America.